To start with this first citation for Paula Kersey. I had the complete honor and pleasure of attending Paula's installation as Nassau County Poet Laureate a few weeks ago, and it was just an amazing experience to listen to her poetry and then to see all of her friends and family enjoying and celebrating her. So, but of course, more importantly, she's a City of Long Beach resident. And like I said that day, I wasn't surprised that she was from Long Beach. So whereas the Nassau County Poet Laureate Society focuses on enriching the lives of poets and residents of Nassau County and the greater Long Island community through the art of poetry, and whereas Paula Kersey, a spoken word poet, broadcaster, school counseling educator, and Long Beach resident, has been selected as a new Nassau County Poet Laureate for the 2022 through 2024 term, whereas Ms. Kersey has successfully demonstrated expertise in poetry and is a dedicated advocate of poetry in the educational and cultural life of Nassau County. The City Council and the City Manager of the City of Long Beach wish to honor and congratulate you on your success for being inducted as the new Nassau County Poet Laureate. Would you like to say something? Do you have anything to say?
I
usually do, right?
I usually do. What poet doesn't like a microphone? I am so honored that you all recognize the importance of a poet laureate for the county. Number one, that is so important. And also, of course, recognizing my contribution to the county and to the youth and the people of the poetry community here on Long Island. So thank you all for your efforts on my behalf and the efforts that you have in sharing the concept of understanding free speech and spoken awareness and spoken word with the entire county and particularly the people of Long Beach. Thank you so much.
Okay, next we would like to recognize Kyle Savage, who recently brought a pop-up production to our youth here, did the work for the musical production of 13 with our youth here in Long Beach in partnership with St. Mary's, and which was part fundraiser for obviously his nonprofit, but also for St. Mary's, and a food drive for St. Mary's as well. So that partnership was a great effort, and it was a good thing for the kids in our community to have musical theater to that level. Kyle has been an executive director of Shining Studios, theater production and classes in Port Washington. He is a resident of Long Beach and is now bringing the pop-up shows to Long Beach and these kinds of partnerships for our youth. So thank you, Kyle. We'd love to have you come up here and say something. Okay, so whereas the City of Long Beach wishes to recognize those individual and organizations who are committed to the betterment of the community, and whereas Kyle Savage, Executive Director of Shining Studios, a nonprofit organization that offers theater classes for children ages 4 to 18, has partnered with St. Mary of the Isle Church to bring pop-up shows to Long Beach, and whereas it's the desire of the City Council and the City Manager to acknowledge and thank Kyle Savage for giving back back to the community while giving our kids new opportunities. And now and therefore, the City Council and the City Manager of the City of Long Beach wish to recognize and proudly present this citation to Kyle Savage. Want to say a few words?
Sure.
I know you probably.
Thank you so much to the City of Long Beach and to all the Long Beach residents. Shining Studios is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that I founded originally in Port Washington 7 years ago with the mission to educate, enrich, and entertain the youth of our community through the performing arts. The performing arts and the magic of theater is so important. It instills confidence in our young people. It teaches public speaking abilities. It nurtures and fosters a sense of community and teamwork. And most of all, it gives kids an environment where they can be themselves and be creative. It's such an honor to be able to bring these skills and bring this program to Long Beach, to the amazing youth in our community, and to continue to spread enrichment and education. So I'd like to thank all of you, and I'd like to thank the City Council for believing in our mission and believing in our good work, and this is just the beginning. Thank you so much.
Okay, now I have a citation for the Law Enforcement Officers Weekend. I had the honor to spend the weekend with the law enforcement officers. They bring in families that are, or the officers that have been wounded in the line of duty. I went as an individual versus going as a city manager. And as that, I learned a lot about those officers and learned a lot about those families. And I just want to say thank you. That I hope that in the future, that if you have an event, that you can bring other individuals in so that they can see that everything that we hear in the news about police officers, actually what they do and how they get hurt in the line of duty protecting us. I learned so much from the individuals that were there. Again, I have to say thank you. So if you all will come up, I will present you with the citation. Okay, and the citation says, whereas the City of Long Beach wishes to recognize those individuals and organizations who are committed to the betterment of the community. And whereas Law Enforcement Officers Weekend supports law enforcement families affected by a line of duty, death, or serious injury by providing a weekend getaway with their blood and blue families of active and retired law enforcement from across the United States. And where it is the desire of the City Council and the City Manager to acknowledge and honor Law Enforcement Officers Weekend for their extraordinary dedication to the law enforcement officers who have sacrificed while safeguarding our communities. And now and therefore, the City Council and the City Manager of the City of Long Beach wish to recognize and proudly present this citation to the Law Enforcement Officers Weekend. Yeah, would you like to
I'm going to use my command voice. So, Law Enforcement Officers Weekend is a 501c3 nonprofit. We were established in 2017. Since then, we've hosted over 60 families from across the country, 22 different states, 27 different agencies from across the U.S. We bring in the families of injured fallen officers to these weekend getaways, all expenses paid. So everything we do is via donation, and through the help of amazing individuals, elected officials like the ones behind me, our police commissioner here in Long Beach. We host events here in Long Beach. We've done it since 2019 was the first event we hosted in Long Beach. We bring 5 families of injured officers here. We bring the families of fallen officers up to Lake George, New York. Many of you probably have been there yourself. It's a beautiful place. We host events in Key Biscayne, Miami, and soon, hopefully, we're going to be hosting events in Colorado and Texas. And it's all established here in the beautiful city by the city. This is where it all started. I started here as a special police officer on the boardwalk, walking the beat in my blue uniform. exactly the same. Everyone up here is a first responder or family of a first responder, and nobody gets paid. We do this out of the kindness of our hearts, and again, it wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for the amazing elected officials behind us, because they're the ones that allow us to do these events to begin with. So, round of applause for them.
Before we start, folks, 2 items have been added to the agenda by unanimous consent. 2 items have been added. They're on the table on the side. Ready? Good evening, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Council of the City of Long Beach, held Tuesday, August 16th, 2022 at 7 p.m. We'll have a roll call. Councilmember Posterling.
Present.
Councilmember Lester.
Here.
Councilmember Bendo.
Present.
Vice President Treston.
Here.
President McGinnis.
Present.
Let the record indicate the presence of City Manager Donna Gaden and Corporation Counsel Richard Barrios will now have a salute to the flag.
Miss Liz, would you say the pledge, please?
I would be honored. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I know, I always have to get organized.
Yeah.
While everyone's getting their papers together, I just want to thank everyone for their patience.
Oh, I found it. Okay. This week, unfortunately, we learned of the passing of former Captain Michael Fisher of the Island Park Fire Department. It was a line of duty death, and he suffered a medical emergency on August 14th following training. We are very sorry to hear about this, and at this moment, we'd like to have a moment of silence in his honor. Thank you.
First item this evening is a public hearing for an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Long Beach regarding building code and Appendix A of the zoning code.
Good evening, everyone. Corporation Counsel Rich Barrios here. This is, I guess, this public hearing and the next three items on the agenda are all kind of the end of the saga of the Haberman case. I flagged to the public before that we'd have a series of meetings. These are the last leg of those meetings and any items. Who will be presenting on this is Carrie O'Farrell, a consultant from Nelson Pope and Voorhees, and Bob Spalzino, also outside counsel, consulting on the matter.
How about now? Good evening. Carrie O'Farrell with the firm Nelson, Pope and Voorhees. I want to make sure the mic works while we get set up. Yeah, I need a... Okay. Great. Good evening. I am here tonight to go over briefly the proposed amendments to the Residence A zoning district, both zoning code and map amendments. Could you go to the first slide? The City of Long Beach is proposing adoption of amendments to the city zoning code and zoning map in connection with the existing Residence Business A district, which is shown in the lightish green on the bottom, outlined in red of the slide that is up on the screen right now. This is a district that allows for mixed use and multiple dwelling opportunities, particularly along the city's park and boardwalk. Currently, the RBA district is limited to a 3-block area along the boardwalk. This is the only district that allows for that mixed use of retail and commercial activities along the boardwalk. And the intention is to extend that district in accordance with the recommendations of the comprehensive plan to increase some of the opportunities for additional integration and activation of the boardwalk by adding provisions for retail and commercial uses along the boardwalk area. The proposed amendments would extend the Residence A business district east 2 blocks from Long Beach Boulevard to areas that are currently zoned Residence L, which are multifamily, as a multifamily district. Again, it looks to extend from Long Beach Boulevard, expanding the area along the boardwalk that would allow for these mixed-use opportunities. There are several key parcels. Could you go to the next slide? I'm sorry. The current RBA and the proposed area of extension include several remaining vacant parcels of significant size. The RBA district only allows for a multifamily or a mixed-use development when you have a minimum lot size of 40,000 square feet for a multiple dwelling and 150,000 square feet for a mixed-use building. The idea is, as these remaining large-scale lots are developed, part of the code provisions would adopt what's called a community benefits bonus policy that would allow for relief of certain parking and bulk and setback reduction for mixed use and multiple dwelling developments, additional density and height in exchange for investments in community and public benefits. Could you go to the next slide? So this shows the extension of the district, as I mentioned, 2 blocks to the east to kind of create a centralized mixed-use district along the boardwalk. Next slide. The community benefit bonuses include a number of categories where a proposed developer would offer or provide at their expense in their investment, community benefits including parking and transit, affordable housing or workforce housing, downtown beautification, parkland and open space, sustainable design, coastal resiliency, historic preservation, arts and cultural space, or community facilities. Again, in exchange for additional flexibility in the redevelopment of the parcels. Again, applying only to multiple use and mixed use developments. Next slide. The provisions shown on the slide include a height addition of up to 3 stories for mixed use or multiple dwelling developments, and an additional 1 story with a smaller building footprint reduced to 10% of the lot for multiple dwellings. An increase in density of up to 30%, reduction of yards, setbacks, and distance between buildings on the same lot, an allocation for compact parking stalls of up to 30%. Any of these zoning reliefs would require first the review of the building inspector and the approval of City Council to make sure that the proposed relief is compatible with adjacent buildings and structures, the current setbacks of existing buildings, vehicle and pedestrian access, visual access, lighting, drainage, utilities, public safety, and whether the reduced setbacks would fulfill the intent and purpose of the proposed zoning code. A new provision that is being, if you could hold on to that, sorry. An additional provision that is proposed to address building height is the incorporation of a step back, which is the diagram that's shown on the right-hand portion of the slide. This would introduce a provision that buildings would have to be stepped back or shifted back away from the street after the 3rd story, which helps to reduce the feeling of bulk at the street level. Additionally, there's an establishment for, the code would establish a requirement for infrastructure capacity analysis for new construction of mixed use and multiple family dwellings in the residence business district. Again, these changes apply only to mixed use and multiple family developments, and there are no changes to the other permitted uses within the district. Next slide. The slide on the screen shows the context of the existing development within the RBA district and within the proposed additional mapped areas. I just want to draw some attention to the variety of height that currently exists within the district. And the photograph on the upper right-hand of the screen shows the existing development that extends further to the east along Shore Road. The buildings in that area and within the overall RBA, in many cases, the footprint of the building extends to a large portion of the lot. What is not changing in the RBA district is a limitation in building coverage. So that building coverage, which is 20% for multiple family dwelling and 25% of the lot area for a mixed-use building, remains unchanged. So that means that the bulk of the building remains only a portion of the lot as you go up in height, as opposed to what exists right now. Again, many of those buildings exceed 50% up to nearly the entire lot of building mass and bulk. So the proposed revisions look to maintain that building coverage as a way of making sure that there's light and air between the buildings and less density along the street and the boardwalk. Next slide, sorry. We reviewed the potential lots that could be redeveloped either as mixed use or multiple dwellings under the proposed code. And there are only 2 parcels that would be eligible, that meet the minimum lot sizes that would be eligible for redevelopment under these provisions. The first is the foundation block, which is located within the existing RBA district. right next to the superblock. For those that are familiar with it, it's outlined in yellow and on the screen. And the second is a series of commonly owned parcels. We're calling them the Shore Road redevelopment parcels, shown in blue on the map, which extend both on the north side and the south side of Shore Road. These parcels, we did an analysis of redevelopment opportunities under the existing zoning and under the proposed, and if you go to the next slide. We did an analysis of those two changes, and the results are shown on the screen for different impact areas. So there is an increase of allowable height, an increase of general lot, building lot area. The total unit increase is 252 residential units, an increase in the commercial area. But again, the change, the delta between the existing zoning and the proposed is fairly limited. Under the existing zoning, the lots would yield 551 residential units, and again, the increase would be 252. The next slide, please. The provisions hold parameters such as parking requirements, so the proposed changes would provide for on-street parking to the extent that, and provide for provisions for additional public parking as one of the main requirements, main targets for the community benefit bonuses to improve these areas closest to the boardwalk. The impact analysis shown on the screen was evaluated in an expanded environmental assessment that evaluated potential impacts based on a wide variety of land use parameters, zoning and community character analysis, traffic and natural resources parameters. These included interviews with community service providers, a visual and shadow analysis, and again, the evaluation looks at what could be built under the current zoning and what that change could result in as under the proposed zoning amendments. Our findings in the expanded environmental assessment form, which the board has before, the council has before you, show that there was no potential significant adverse impacts compared to potential development under the existing zoning. I can go through any of the impact parameters in greater detail if the board would like. That's a brief summary of the proposed changes.
Thank you very much. At this time, do we have any questions from the council members? Oh, I'm sorry.
If anyone has any questions, we could refer to slides if needed. Oh, I'm sorry.
He's scared.
Okay, I'll ask again, does anyone on the council have any questions at this time? Do we have any questions from the public on this matter? Ms. Hession?
Good evening, Eileen Hession, Long Beach. I tried to read through that big document that was online today, but I just couldn't get through the whole thing. I have a lot of questions, but I guess there's not enough time for that. This is only for new buildings, right? They're not going to plop 3 more stories on top of the building down my block, are they?
Yes, that's correct.
It's new buildings. Thank you for answering. Also, the benefit to us would be things like affordable housing and parking. would the affordable housing and the parking be within the same building that they're building? Because otherwise, there's no parking in Long Beach. If there was, we would have gotten to it already. And then is the affordable housing, is that Section 8 housing, or is it that formula where it's 10% less than the rent that the other people pay or something?
With respect to the question of parking, so, yeah, that makes more sense, thank you. Public parking could be provided either on the lot or a lot that they can control within the district. The approach on how community benefit bonuses are offered, a developer would come to the city council, the city manager actually first, and then to the city council with a provision, and they would need to review it and understand how the benefit of the proposed offer and does that make sense for the community. So it will be up to the city council in terms of evaluating the benefit of the location and the provision for the parking in exchange for those reductions.
And that would have to be before the building started to be built?
Correct. It would be part of the review process.
Okay. And then did you say that would be an increase of 252 or
That's a maximum.
551?
So 252 is a maximum. What we do is we evaluate a reasonable redevelopment scenario on those two lots that were the lots that were eligible, and we maximize what would be, what could be provided under the code. That's, again, sort of the top of the additional density. So it's not a necessary outcome, but it is a potential worst case, or I'll say reasonable redevelopment scenario.
And the 551 or 2, what was that number?
That is related to what could be done under the existing zoning. The existing zoning allows for multiple dwellings currently, so it's a comparison of the existing zoning allocation and how the proposed project or the proposed action would increase it.
It concerns me because we just had the super block, which is letting a lot more people and cars and infrastructure and all that stuff that we talked about with them. And this could be another 550 units, which is another 1,000 people, another 1,000 cars. It's a little bit scary.
Can you clarify the 551 again? It's not an additional 551.
The 551 is the number of residential units that could be built under the existing, if nothing were to happen, the existing zoning remains the number of units that could be built currently.
So the
no changes to the code.
So the incremental is actually 252.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
It's still 500 more people and 500 more cars. I'll have to let you know after I read through the whole thing what my vote is, but I'm a little nervous about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the public? Mr. Kirkland?
Jim Kirkland, Long Beach. My question is about the setbacks that you, after 3 stories, is that just on the part facing the street, or is it also on the side of the building?
It's just on the part facing a street frontage.
And how much of a setback would there be? 5 feet, 10 feet, 3 feet?
15 feet.
15 feet,
Yes,
okay. Just to make it appear not.
correct. It makes it, exactly, pulls the density off of the street level, so.
Thank you. Ms. Lake? Good evening.
Good evening, Crystal Lake. Regarding the potential 250 units, what percentage may be affordable? I'm just curious.
The question is, of the incremental 252 units, how many would be quote-unquote affordable?
So affordable housing is one of the community benefit bonuses that a developer could choose to offer. So it is not a a requirement that there is affordable housing, they can offer a certain amount of affordable housing in exchange for the requested either additional density or additional bonuses. So it will be an offer from a developer based on depending on what relief they're seeking. So, depending on if they're seeking one additional story, if they're seeking, a certain number of additional units, they bring their proposal forward to the city council and they review it based on, again, the relief that's requested in exchange for what is the benefit.
Okay, so potentially,
Microphone,
sorry,
please.
potentially it could be possibly 10, 15%. Also, the AMI, if the developer was interested, including the affordable component, which I think would be a great opportunity across the board, I think the AMI would be something to take into consideration, in addition to the potential for hiring of local residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Lake, just so you know, if you look at there's a chart in item 3 of what the benefits are. The AMI we would require is 65 or below,
I know
which is
that- I know
far
that.
lower than the other state requirement.
80% would be better, and 80% AMI would be better, more appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just as a point of clarification, the suggestion of 65% of AMI was looking at typical salaries for public workers, school teachers, city workers, the intention being that those affordable units being offered as a workforce housing. So that's how that parameter was originally established.
Thank you. Are there any more questions from the public? Seeing none, we will close the hearing.
On to the regular calendar. Item 1 is a resolution declaring the City Council of the City of Long Beach lead agency for the amendment of its Code of Ordinances, including its zoning map and code, as well as creating a community benefits bonus policy, declaring said projects to constitute a Type 1 action, and adopting negative declarations.
Okay, good evening again. Right. As, excuse me. Just a point of clarification, I will recommend to the council one amendment. I do have it. I'll read it out loud. The amendment would be specifically item 1, page 2 in the SECRA negative declaration portion, specifically in the location section, to remove all the language and replace it as follows. Existing residence business A, RBA district, bounded by the boardwalk to the south, Broadway to the north, National Boulevard to the west, and Long Beach Boulevard to the east, in the city of Long Beach, Nassau County, New York. The proposed action would extend the RBA district 2 blocks eastward to include the area between Long Beach Boulevard and Lincoln Boulevard, which is currently in the Residence L district.
So do I have a motion on the action, on the amendment that is proposed by the Corporation Council?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes.
Okay, continue.
All right. So, as everyone heard in that presentation, Nelson Pope and Voorhees and Ms. O'Farrell basically conducted expanded environmental assessment, has found no potential significant adverse environmental impact, and recommends that the city issue and adopt a negative declaration in that regard in order to comply with our SECRA obligations. So if you have any questions on the 289-page document, please let me know.
Any questions from the council? Any questions from the public on this item? Seeing none?
Item 2 is an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Long Beach regarding building code and Appendix A of the zoning code. A hearing has been held on this item already. Item 3 is a resolution establishing and adopting a community benefit bonuses and funds policy for the Residence Business A district.
And good evening again. As Ms. O'Farrell pointed out in her presentation, the community benefit bonus policy is basically part of the policy incident to the ordinance that's on the public hearing. This would allow developers to present those community benefit bonuses to apply for extra relief, whether it be height, density, or other zoning relief as set forth in that modified ordinance.
Okay, any questions from the council on this item? Mr. Bendo?
I think my question might have been answered with a diagram that was in the presentation, but I just want to confirm on the step back, where it's 15 feet for the fourth story and all stories above fronting the street. Is that from street level or from base flood elevation plus the freeboard, the fourth story?
You're correct. So height in the city is measured based on the definition of grade level. So grade level, when you're in when you have a base flood elevation, does start. Grade level is above the freeboard above your base flood elevation. That's the measurement of height above that.
Okay, because the diagram you showed here has the fourth floor from street level.
Yes.
No.
Well, so it's the fourth story begins the step back, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
So
I'm sorry. Your question is.
So the question is the fourth floor from street level?
Right. There's a difference between height and stories. So you're right. The first story is street level.
Okay, that's what I was trying. I just want to.
So it's not about measuring height. In this case, it's stories. I'm sorry.
Okay, just wanted to confirm that.
Yes.
Thank
So
you.
to be clear, grade first level is street level, and then 2 stories above that, then the step back would kick in.
Any other questions from Mr. Lester?
I didn't quite get that. You said first story is street level. Is that right?
So in terms of counting stories of buildings, the at level is your first story, and then additional stories above that.
Street level is parking, correct?
It can be. It depends
but
on.
according to the diagram you're showing us, you have the first level parking. That's the street level. That's where the ground level is. That's the picture of the person running on the street.
Yes.
And then the first story is, what is that, 9 plus 6 plus 2? Is that the freeboard 2? I can't read that.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, the first level, I'm sorry, in this case, you are correct, and I take that back. So the first level is a parking level, street level parking level, and then 3 levels of residential or mixed use above that, and then the step back applies from that.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm sorry if that was confusing.
So is street level always synonymous with ground level in the which is in the document? It says ground level.
Yes, ground level is the same as street level.
Thank you.
Grade level has a different meaning depending on if you're in a flood zone or not. It's a little confusing.
Okay. And I know we had a lot of questions in our grid this week, so thank you for that. Are there any questions from the public on this item? Seeing none?
Okay. Item 4 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for the reconstruction of Doyle Street between Eastchester and Pine Streets with the lowest responsible bidder.
No, that was it. Item 2 was...
Good evening, everybody. I'm Joe Fabrizio, Commissioner of Public Works. Yes, on Thursday, July 21st, 2022 at 11 a.m. in DPW, the city received 5 bids for the reconstruction of Doyle Street between Chester and Pine Street. The low bidder was Thomas Novelli Contracting Corporation at $1,495,130. There were 4 other bids in order. The next one was Allen Industries at $1,519,000. AJ Contracting at $1,835,000. Aventura Construction at $2.4 million, and J.R. Cruz at $2,515,000. Just for your information, this project was designed in-house by my staff, Brooke Anderson, who works for me, and Connor Bogue. We actually went out there. We actually surveyed the whole road. We drew up the plans on AutoCAD. We submitted them to the health department for approval. This was all done in-house with our small but excellent staff. The project includes new sidewalks, curbs, ADA ramps, concrete gutters, new water mains and water services, new sanitary sewer mains and services, new catch basins, new ornamental streetlights, and a new asphalt composite roadway. Thomas Novelli Contracting is a reputable contractor. They just recently successfully completed the $1 million removal of the secondary digester cover at the wastewater treatment plant. They also completed the sewer collapse work for $200,000 on Park Avenue between New York and Grand, and they also completed last year Boyd Street north of Pine. Again, they're a reputable contractor who's done many successful projects in the city. The project, if this is approved tonight, our intent is to commence work right after Labor Day, and it's approximately a 4-month project. So we should finish hopefully, by the end of the year. And if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Any questions from the council? Mr. Lester?
Yes. Joe, I had asked a question which you answered about the light posts, because on Boyd Street they were put right in the middle of the sidewalk, and you say that's not going to happen.
No, that was an atypical situation, what happened on Boyd. Boyd Street happens to be a unique street where it's arguably, I think it's the narrowest street in the city of Long Beach. It's approximately 17
I think that's Nevada.
Well, Nevada, you're right. It might be a close second, correct. So it's approximately 17 foot 6 inches on the north end and approximately 18 foot to 18 foot 6 inches on the south end. So we only have a 3-foot sidewalk on that street, so if we tried to make it any wider, the road would have been even narrower than it is today. So that was an unfortunate situation, an existing condition that we were unable to get around.
But it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen on Doyle.
Yeah.
Doyle Street, it's going to be a 4-foot sidewalk with a 2-foot utility strip, which is where the new poles are going to be placed. So there won't be any issue like that. It'll be very similar to Harding, which we recently completed between Walnut and Broadway, and Pacific between Walnut and Broadway as well. It'll be very similar to those streets where you have a 4-foot sidewalk, 2-foot utility strip, and the new streetlights are in that 2-foot utility strip. When I say utility strip, I mean the grass area between the curb and the sidewalk.
I was there during the entire time they were doing the work. They were incredibly professional.
Oh,
and
thank you.
Really
Yes,
took care of everybody, made sure people could get into their houses. They had to put, all sorts of wood down and stuff like that. They were incredibly courteous to all the residents and everything. I was very impressed. And
Yeah,
I don't say that very often.
No, I appreciate that. And we just finished, and I have the video of the secondary digester cover removal at the plant, and Councilman Bendo witnessed it, and they did some job. I mean, it was pretty impressive. It was a unique situation that required a great deal of expertise, and they knocked it out of the park. So, I'm happy with them. I recommend awarding the project to them.
Any other questions from the council on this item? Mr. Bendo?
I think you know what I'm going to ask, because
I know exactly what you're going to ask.
I guess I'm having a little difficulty understanding why we're using the same light poles when we know these light poles do not hold up to the environment we have here.
Yeah, that question, since you posed it to me many times actually, has been weighing on me for quite some time. And the problem that we have is, we have the salt air environment here. We've tried 3 different manufacturers so far. We used poles from Century Electric. They're located in Freeport on Penn Street. That's in the historical district between New York Avenue and National Boulevard. On West Bay Drive between Washington and Magnolia, we've used Century poles as well, and those are also deteriorating. On the boardwalk, we use poles from Sternberg Lighting, and they're also deteriorating relatively quick. And we also have the new poles that we're using, which is from Magnaflood, and they're located out of Freeport, out of Amityville, I apologize. I've contacted them repeatedly. They basically have a 1-year warranty on the finish, which really doesn't offer much. What my intent was when we renew our street lighting contract was to obtain a price from our street lighting contractor to actually begin doing priming and painting, because most of the recommendations are to basically wire brush them and paint them with a Rust-Oleum type product. But since you'd asked the question again, I did set up a meeting for next Thursday with New York Trenchless, the owner, and I am going to be taking him down to Penn Street. I'm going to be asking him for a proposal under our existing street lighting contract to see if there's any way we could start addressing them, even if it's one per month, to see if he would give me a price to actually prime, paint, use a wire brush, and start addressing these poles one by one. And if you're interested, I'd welcome you to attend with me. We're going to go on. I mentioned Penn Street because to me it's the worst. They've been there probably for over 10 years, and the poles are literally turned from black to they're almost silver. That's how bad it is. So that being said, we don't use those poles here
So is the
anymore.
commonality with these that they're all fiberglass with a powder coat?
They're not fiberglass at all. They're aluminum.
They are aluminum.
They're all aluminum. They're
Okay.
aluminum, and they're coated, powder coated.
Okay.
They're all aluminum. We don't have anything.
So even the aluminum's not holding
But
up.
it's interesting is that the aluminum poles that are, which is makes up of most of the city, like if you go down Park Avenue, those poles are pristine, and they've been there for
Right.
They've been there for 50 years, and they're fine. We only started doing installing colonial poles, I would say, when we used to design roads, just for your information, the only thing we did in my earlier years was we basically just upgraded the cable, adjusted the footing to proposed grade, and put the lights back on. That's what we did. We just used the existing lights. I think it was in La Caruba's tenure, Commissioner La Caruba, when we actually started addressing and changing the lights on the street when we did the reconstructions. And it is costly. Those poles that you see, those post-top luminaires that are on Boyd, that are on Harding, those are about $10,000 each. They're not cheap.
Yeah.
So just that component of the project, if there's $1.4 million project, it's probably almost $150,000 to $200,000. So I agree with you, it's a problem. I wish I had a better solution. I have no problem reaching out to other manufacturers, but I am aware of it. It weighs on me. And if you're interested, I do have a meeting next Thursday with the owner of New York Trenchless, and we are going to see what we can do as far as starting to do some remediation on some of the poles, because it is a chronic problem, and I'm aware of it, and I'm trying to address it.
Okay, thanks.
The meeting that you just invited Councilmember Bendo, that's open to all.
Oh, of course.
council members.
Yes.
Okay,
No,
thank
I
you.
apologize. Yes. No, John and I, Commissioner, Councilmember Bendo, we've had a significant dialogue about this over the last probably year or two. And that's why I mentioned him. But of course, everybody's always welcome, of course. The more the merrier, no doubt.
Ms. Tresson, do you have a question?
I just wanted to thank you for answering my questions in the grid as well.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the council? Any questions from the public on this item? Okay, seeing none. Dave, can you give us a clarification on a previous item?
So, yes, so I think there's a little confusion about the previous items. Item 2 goes along with the public hearing that we held originally. So that's when I called it, I said, item 2 is an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances, and I said a hearing has been held on this item already and moved as normal procedure and moved to the next item, because the public comment has
Okay.
already been held.
I had a minor amendment, there was a typo.
We could still do that. We haven't voted on the item yet, so that
wait
can
till we
happen.
get there then.
Yes. So, and I believe,
Yeah, okay. At this time, I'm just seeking, for the purpose of seeking advice of counsel, I'd like to move that we move into executive session.
hang on one second. Different sheet.
Okay.
Well, I need a second.
I'll second.
Voting for executive session, Councilmember Postoli? Hello?
Did he ask for me? For me?
Yes.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester?
Yes.
Councilmember Bendo?
Yes.
Vice President Treston?
Yes.
President McGinnis?
Yes.
Okay, at this time, the council is going into executive session. For those viewing online at home, this video will end. A new video that will say City Council Meeting 8/2/22 Part 2 will be posted probably within the next 10 minutes.